feel like I need to start by showing this. This is Samsung's camera app versus Apple's. And there's such a gap between them. Whilst every generation, Apple is just constantly thinking, how do we keep this simple? Samsung is just cramming features into every corner, like portrait mode video, super steady recording, possibly the best pro video mode out there, multiple camera shooting at the same time, 8K video, and a second version of their single take feature. Which means that I can just tap this shutter once and get from that every type of photo and video in one go. What does the iPhone have? Portrait mode? Slow-mo? But so does the Samsung. And yes, the main purpose of this video is to test core image quality, but you can't ignore that disparity. I think that just by having this many options gives Samsung a slightly higher starting point. And when I say options, there's much more to it than just surface-level software gimmicks. Like zoom. I don't need to tell you that this camera has better zoom functionality than this camera. I think Samsung made that pretty clear. But to show you just how much better, I'm actually hiding in this photo. You probably can't see me on the ultra-wide cameras, so this is 1 times, this is 3 times, this is 10 times, and it's like I'm not even there. And you'll be pleased to know that if for some reason you did want to do 100 times on the Samsung, you can. Now, this is kind of to be expected, because Apple does not care about zoom. In fact, the only context Apple ever talks about zoom cameras in is just in how they can be used to take great portrait shots. So as far as zoom distance is concerned, whether it's photo, whether it's video, it's not even close. And that's not to say that the iPhone is bad at zooming. I would actually put this phone in the definitely adequate ballpark. It's just that Samsung's devoted a lot of resources into making their phone special at it. But I will say, it's kind of ironic that a phone so specialized on zoom still can't seamlessly transition between lenses without some sort of little lag, like the iPhones have been doing for years now. It's not like a huge deal, but it just loses a little bit of that perceived polish. But the core features continue. If you watched my first impressions video of this phone, you'll know they've done something pretty clever with it. They've made the ultra-wide camera double as a close-up macro camera. You just approach a subject and it will automatically switch. And as you can probably tell, it's good. It's rare that you see disparities this massive when you're comparing 2 super high-end phones, but look at it. I mean, these look like before and after photos. To be clear, I'm not saying that I think macro shots are anywhere near as important as shots from the main camera. It's not like I've ever really had a moment using the iPhone 12 Pro Max where I've thought, do you know what I really want to do? I want to take a close-up shot of the texture of this table. But I can't. Stupid iPhone. But what I am saying is that sometimes it takes seeing how something could be done to realize how it should be done. And now having used Samsung's macro camera and seen shots like this, going back to the iPhone and a lot of other phones, something feels wrong. I just kept moving further and further back from the subject, thinking, surely it's going to focus now. It wasn't this bad, was it? I do have to say though, even with all its lenses and tech and software magic, there is one thing that Samsung has not nailed on this phone. Portrait mode. I took portrait after portrait after portrait, and I just couldn't escape the same feeling that I had when I was using the S20 Ultra last year, that this looks fake. And on one hand, it is fake, it's a phone, what do I expect? But on the other hand, the iPhone could make you think otherwise. You could hand someone a portrait mode photo taken on an iPhone and possibly convince them that it was in fact taken on a $1,500 DSLR. You couldn't on this phone. And what makes this more frustrating is the fact that Samsung has done portrait mode just fine before. Like, take these 2 photos. Which one do you prefer? This one, right? There's less distortion and the background blur just looks a little more natural. Well, this photo is actually taken on the 2019 base Galaxy S10, a phone that you can now get for like $400. This one is the 2021 Ultra. Why? Well, the important thing to remember is that photos of people, and I would almost argue photos in general, look much more natural when taken on zoom cameras. And so I think at least 90% of the problem comes from the fact that since the S20 Ultra, Samsung has put such high magnification zoom cameras on their phones that they've disabled using those zoom cameras to take portraits. But given that this new phone has not just a crazy 10 times, but also a pretty normal 3 times optical zoom, I think it would work. You just can't try it. So this is why the iPhone's portraits always look a little bit more zoomed in than the Samsung's. The iPhone is using its dedicated 2.5x zoom lens, and the Samsung is just using its normal main camera, and then for some reason decides to digitally zoom in 2 times, I guess just to try and make it look similar. But that's going to result in even worse quality. And nothing makes it clearer that this is the problem than the fact that when you take portrait mode on the front cameras, where both phones use a pretty similar type of lens, they look about the same. There are some shots I would hand to the iPhone, there are some I would hand to the Samsung. But there isn't enough of a cohesive pattern for me to say, oh, this one takes